All right, 60 seconds and we are off. Thirty seconds. We have another birthday. Oh man, if we do another round of birthday singing on Zoom, it's gonna be pretty special. Happy birthday, Kuno. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're off. All right, good morning, everybody. Happy to be back with you. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Hope that you're having a great November so far. I don't know about you guys, but my wife was always, Thanksgiving's done. We have the Christmas tree. We're ready. It's already the next one. So happy holidays if you enjoy Thanksgiving and Christmas. And even if you don't, still.
Andrew, you rag on me for happy birthday singing. It's your turn at the end of this one. It's Kuno's birthday, so
I know it's a birthday.
He's singing happy birthday after this one, and then we rag on him.
If we're singing happy birthday, Jim, at the end, you're gonna have to lead it. That's just kind of, I think it's tradition. He's not sold. But anyway, we have a nice that'll be the final bit of punishment of today's workout. We'll all sing happy birthday during the cool down. It'll be wonderful. We'll all look forward to it. And like I said on Tuesday's call, if anybody is new to Tower 26, who's on this, but I don't think there is anybody, but if they watch the recording and they haven't done one, they're probably going to leave after hearing us sing, but that's okay. It'll be all right. So we have a nice extended warm up as you've kind of gotten used to through this time of the year. But for the first time, they're just little teasers. We are going to have a couple harder efforts at the end of the workout. Now, harder, I quantify that by saying it's time at threshold. So keep in mind, threshold, you've likely lowered it from what your peak fitness was. Hopefully lowered it a little bit because it's pretty unsustainable to think that we're going to have the exact same threshold now as we would right when we're hitting our peak A race. Obviously, if anybody's been training for somebody like Brian Massey comes to mind, a peak A race at Indian Wells, that's an exception. It's very likely you're near peak fitness if that's been an A race for you. But if not, then this is the time of year where it's very normal for overall fitness and threshold to be a bit lower. And the same would go even if you are racing Indian Wells. After that, if you're taking a little breather, threshold is likely to come down, and there's benefit to making sure that you do adjust it downwards a little bit. But so the little 4-minute blocks we're going to be doing at the end of today's workout at threshold, they're bite size, right? We talk about bite size. They're just enough to keep our body effective, keep our body efficient at that power output. When we go back to say next Thursday's workout, we're not going to be up at threshold, but there's no downside to giving ourselves little bits of that exposure. It's almost, if you think about fast running, right? Or fast swimming, we always incorporate little pieces of it. Could just be strides after an easy run, could just be some fast 25s in the pool, but we want to keep a little bit of exposure at higher pace or intensity on the body to make sure that the efficiency gains that we're making, or the maybe form changes that we're making at lower power outputs, are translating to the higher power output. And on the bike, if you compare it to something like the run, much like the swim is, it's not hard on the body. You know, you do 4-minute blocks with recovery in between at threshold. It's not creating a massive fight or flight response. It's not 20-minute blocks at threshold. It's not even like a 10-minute block. So just giving ourselves a little bit of exposure there at the end of the workout. But we have something today that combines the technical aspect with that little bit of intensity with a strength focus. So the meat of the workout's really simple, and it's focused on two things. One, what we've been harping on with gear changes, meaning differentiating 80%, 90%, and 100%. It's such a valuable tool to have as you get towards race day, but it's also really, really important to firmly know what the differences between those efforts are as we go through this technical and then into our foundation phase of training. If we blend those efforts too much, if all of a sudden 80 becomes 90 when we're doing things by feel, if 90 especially gets up towards 95 or 100, we're activating different systems. We're getting a different training stimulus. So this time of year, various efforts where we're just firmly planted in those ranges, 80, 90, 100. Obviously it's a little harder than say moderate, medium, and hard. I mean, medium, 90%, it's a little above medium, but there are 3 significant gear changes. So those are the efforts we're working at today. The meat of the workout, another few minutes of easy spinning, really simple, 6 4-minute efforts. The odd numbered efforts are 60 to 70 RPM. So number 1, number 3, number 5 are at 60 to 70 RPM, a strength focus, and the evens are the cadence of your choice. Cadence of your choice, if you are in the mood, you can certainly keep it to the lower end, but typically you'll gravitate towards a nice comfy 80 to 90 RPM race pace cadence for the choice cadence efforts. So those are 2, 4, and 6. I'll remind you of that. It'll be on the screen. You don't have to remember all that. And we're progressing effort by 2s. The first 2 are at 80%. The second 2 are at 90%. And the final 2 are at 100%. So you're going to get 1 effort at choice cadence and 1 effort at 60 to 70 RPM at each power range. And part of the goal is to see how that feels as well, right? Is to see, okay, maybe I'm really comfortable at 80% at 60 to 70 RPM. Maybe 90% it's getting a bit more challenging. And then let's see how that 100% effort, just for 4 minutes, feels in the 60 to 70 RPM range. So just like we do when we have the 4-minute efforts, 3 or 4-minute efforts that are, even lower than this, if you're capable of going down to the 50 to 60 or 40 to 50 RPM range, we don't need to do that today. Today, just 60 to 70. Also no need to push the power above where it's prescribed. But when you're doing a 90% or especially 100% effort at 60 to 70 RPM, same concept as the even lower RPM work. That power output combined with that cadence range is creating a much higher demand on the muscles. Basically, the torque demand is preparing the body. When you're doing 60 to 70 RPM at 100%, you're prepping for all of that VO2 work that's going to come in the spring. You're prepping for the intensity of much harder efforts, but obviously without having to go there. We're putting a bigger demand on the muscular system, stressing the muscles, tearing the muscles up a little bit, but we're not getting the same load that doing 4 minutes at 120% this time of year is going to provide. So it's a nice rhythm, simple efforts, short efforts. This is another workout I like to, the Mambo is an easy reference in the pool, but to progress workouts throughout the year. So this is one you've seen variations of last season. You'll see again, what will change is at times the cadence demand, but eventually we'll progress the duration to where within the hour we're doing, more or less we're doing double the work that we're going to do today. So up to maybe 7 or 8 minute blocks, whatever we have time for. Today's just 4 minutes at a time. Another minute here, power will drop down really easy for a minute, and then we'll begin a nice little zone 3 ramp portion of our warm-up. Today's workout is also a great session for time in the aero bars. This is a textbook session. There's no crazy hard efforts. There's no outlandish cadence demands. We're not going down to 40 to 50 RPM. So it's a good opportunity, as much of the work, meaning the 4 minute blocks as you can, tucked into that aero position. If you're on the road bike, the hoods or the drops, both great to be in. But yeah, it's a good, the session's less than, well, now we have less than an hour left. So as much time in that aero position as you can spend, the more time, the better. One note is, in case you are racing Indian Wells, you should probably cut this workout after rep number 3. No harm to easy spinning after that. There wouldn't be any harm to doing 3 full reps, the first 3, but after that you could cut it. If you stay on, maybe do the high cadence drill at the very end with us, but no need to do all 6 reps if you are racing Indian Wells on Sunday. So another 40 seconds here, then we will begin that little zone 3 ramp. Plenty of time for the body to warm up. During the zone 3 ramp, cadence is your choice, but just keeping it nice and light, somewhere in that 80 to 90, even up to 95 if that's your comfort zone, RPM range. All right, 10 seconds till we start that. Same thing here. You can fold into that arrow position. Make sure you're getting the body warmed up under load. And here we go. So 3-minute ramp, nothing too crazy. 80%, 83%, 86%, all nice lower to mid-range zone 3 effort. This time of year, I mentioned when we get to blocks of work that are maybe even 7 or 8 minutes, and we're going to get as much work in as possible in the hour. Right now, with these short blocks of work, the technique focus, we have plenty of time for an extended warm-up. And I always like to take advantage of that. Everybody's different. I know there are athletes who can roll out of bed, get going, and be right into it. Thinking of Jim here. And others where a nice kind of longer warm-up to prep the body is always welcome. So this time of year, we try to take advantage of that as much as we can. In 10 seconds, power is going to tick up a little bit. If you're already in that comfortable 85, 90 RPM range, you can stay there. There's no need to intentionally push it above. If you started this one a little bit lower at 75 or 80 RPM, do try to progress the cadence upwards gradually to get into that 85-ish RPM range. So the same way that during this warm-up, you're pedaling smooth, all of your upper bodies are naturally very quiet. There's nobody who looks like they're working unduly hard at this effort. Look at yourself on Zoom. This is what we want to carry in. This type of form is what we want to carry into the main set. It's going to be easy to execute at the 80%, but when we get up to that 90 and especially that 100% at 60 to 70 RPM, this is what we want ourselves to look like. Quiet, silent upper body. Power will tick up here for the final minute. Quiet upper body, relaxed arms. And a lot of times at a power output like this, we tend to naturally be relaxed. We relax those wrists, we relax our neck. We actually are in a nice aerodynamic position. And as effort increases, say to 100%, we tend to tense up a little bit. And the key is relaxation. This is remaining relaxed under load. We don't want to tense up. We don't want to sit up more and come out of that arrow position when we're at 100% effort. We want to stay just like this. Those efforts that we're going to build to, they're intentionally they're short. They're 4 minutes at a time so that you can really focus on body position, on proper technique, rather than just being overwhelmed by the effort. Another 10 seconds, then recover. And easy. All right. We're going to have a few 30-30s, 90% effort to warm up. Just because we're going a little bit harder today, we are pushing up to 90 and 100% effort briefly. So I want to make sure the body's ready for that. During these 30-30s, we start with 30 seconds hard. That'll begin in 40 seconds, followed by 30 seconds easy. The goal is to progress cadence over these 4 efforts. So the first one, first 30 seconds hard, you start at whatever cadence you're comfortable with. And each one, we want to progress cadence upwards so that by the final 30-second hard portion, we're in that nice 95 or even 100 RPM range. Ideally looking to crack 100 RPM by the final one. So 10 seconds and then power will come on. 3, 2, 1, and the first one. Just little 30 seconds at a time. Get the body moving. You can do these as a mix of in arrow or out of arrow, but it is good to do them in arrow if you can. Just warm the body up in the position that we're going to be doing the majority of the main set in. You can come out of that arrow position during the recovery periods. And easy. Easy portions, cadence your choice. Nice and relaxed. All right, you can start bringing that cadence up a little bit. Power will come on right now. So again, if you're already in that 100 RPM range, fantastic. If you started somewhere more comfortable, the goal is just to progress cadence up each rep. So we're getting to that 100 RPM range by the fourth one. This is number 2. So you have time. Just make sure you're progressing that cadence up nice and light. No low cadence work here. All right, nice job. So don't let this little bit of threshold exposure. We're not going back to the type of training we'll be doing in January or February or just a bunch of intensity. But again, just making sure that this work we're doing at lower power, that we're translating the good habits and good form to proper riding under load. So just want to make sure we get some exposure to it today. Bring that cadence up now. Number 3, here we go. Try to be up in that 95 plus RPM range for this one to set yourself up to crack 100 on the last one. And easy. So this final effort, think of the form, think of the lightness on the pedals that you're going to want to carry into the final effort of our whole workout. When we're up at 100%, the 6th rep, cadence is your choice. You obviously don't have to be up at 100 RPM when we do that, but nice and light, relaxed upper body, good habits, good cues that you're going to carry into the main set. All right, cadence comes up, and here we go. Final one. Nice work, nice and light on the pedals, and a little bit of recovery here. 2.5 minutes. Good job. That higher RPM, again, it's not such a physical thing. It's a lot of neurological activation, if you will. The higher cadence, one of the first things to go when we are fatigued, when we're under a really big training load, and you can probably look back on Training Peaks and see it, although we do gravitate towards some lower cadence within triathlon anyway. But the first thing to go, if I were to tell you to go out, we're doing a week and you're riding 5 hours a day and you're under a huge training load and you're running and you're swimming, it would feel harder and harder to maintain a given effort at a higher cadence at the end of that week than it would at the beginning of that week. If you look at a grand tour in cycling as fatigue mounts, cadence tends to go down, right? In a given rider, because we lose a little bit of almost that neurological efficiency, right? We get fatigued, and there's such a thing as mental fatigue as well. So those little activations, bringing the cadence up to 100 plus RPM, that's the kind of break that barrier. If you are at all fatigued from any other training, it's just to make sure that we're heading into this workout ready to go, neurologically switched on. Even if we are a little bit fatigued, we can all switch on for another 41 minutes here. But that's why we always do that. That's why we bring the cadence up there. So the first two efforts that we're going to start in about a minute. Number one, reminder, 60 to 70 RPM. So it's not going to feel hard. It's 80% effort. There's nothing crazy. And the real goal at these lower powers is to focus on that form, right? Of course, it's simple to do 60 to 70 RPM at 80%. You want to carry that same form, that same feeling on the bike through to the 100% effort, because at the end of the day, much like fast swimming, if you think about it, if we can't translate good form during fast swimming, right, on fast 25s and fast 50s, if we can't hold it, maintain it, and translate it to, a 1.2 or 2.4 mile swim, it's not actually going to be that valuable to us. So that's a little bit of what we're focusing on today. We have the good habits, we have proper pedal technique or efficiency, and then we're going to carry that into effort under load. So 3 seconds, start slowing that cadence down, fold yourself, or make an effort to fold yourself into that aero position, and bring that cadence to the 60 to 70 RPM range. Again, you have control over where in that 60 to 70 range you want to sit. So you have a little bit of the control over how challenging these are going to feel. What I would say is, if you're comfortable with it, you start out towards the lower end of the range. You go a little bit more towards 60 RPM here, where we are under a more mild power load, because it's very likely that as we get to that 100% effort, you might think, I want to be more towards 70 because it's just feeling really challenging or really grindy at 60 RPM. But again, ultimately, it's up to you. Anywhere in that 60 to 70 RPM range, we're going to accomplish the goal. The closer you are to 60 RPM, the higher the torque demand, the more stress is being put on the muscular system compared to the cardiovascular system. For all of you riding this, even if you don't love diving into your Training Peaks files, this is also a great workout to see. 4 minutes is typically a long enough duration, but to see the heart rate difference between low cadence versus choice cadence, assuming that your choice is maybe in that 80 to 90 RPM range. And it's likely that you're going to see heart rate significantly lower, or at least noticeably lower at the lower RPM, and heart rate going up a bit as we go towards that more fluid 80 to 90 RPM range. Even within 80 to 90, that's a pretty broad range. If you're down at 80, heart rate's going to be a little more controlled than 90. And again, within tri, we want to get off and we want to be able to run. That's a huge part of the goal. It's great to make ourselves fast on the bike. It's great to see power output go up. But ultimately, if we cannot get off the bike and execute the run, it's all for nothing. So we want to make you strong. We want to make you durable. We want to build endurance on the bike. But in a big way, the bike is set up to, yes, go quickly. Yes, improve your threshold and everything else. But the training we do is to set yourself up to get off the bike and execute the best run that you're capable of. Nice job staying in that aero position, or in the drops if you're on the road bike. 60 to 70 RPM is what we're looking for. You have 2 minutes of recovery. Didn't mention that in between each of these reps. It's a fixed 2 minutes of recovery. So plenty of recovery, 2 to 1 work to rest ratio, but the power's not too demanding. So plenty of time to fuel, to come out of the aero position and give yourself a breather. This time of year is also a good opportunity to learn a bit about yourself as an athlete. Some athletes, we have these 60 to 70 RPM work and they love it. And it feels very natural. A lot of times those are the athletes who naturally gravitate a bit towards lower cadence, or maybe have a strength background in the gym, or just, even stereotypically look very muscular. Their muscles are already kind of equipped to handle this. And then we have those who say, I really do not enjoy the lower cadence work, right? Everybody's going to get a benefit. Everybody needs the work, but just keep in mind, if you don't particularly enjoy it, you're certainly getting almost an extra benefit from it. So lean into it, execute it, for a few more seconds, and then you get to rest. All right, couple minutes to fuel up, nice and easy. Ignore the cadence demand on the screen. Cadence is your choice on every recovery period. Nice, supple, relaxed. We do want to make sure it's above that 60 to 70 RPM range. So bring that cadence back up. You don't have to force it anywhere, but these are your opportunities. These are just little bite-sized chunks, right? We're going to extend those with time. Recovery will come down with time. But today, the focus is really on technique under load. So this next one, same effort, identical, it's at 80%, but cadence is your choice. So this is that opportunity to feel, okay, we're at that obviously exaggerated low cadence. You're not going to be racing in the 60 to 70 RPM range, but here's the opportunity to just settle in to what feels most comfortable for you. And the reason I say choice cadence and don't just say here 80 RPM or 85 is because it's also possible that what feels most comfortable for you at 80% effort is going to vary from what feels most comfortable for you when we get to 100% effort. And that's okay. Like Alicia said, the need to work on the low cadence thing. I mean, there's everybody can benefit. It doesn't matter if it feels natural to you. There's still, you have to work in that range to maintain your ability to output power in that range. But when it does feel more foreign, you do have that little bit of added benefit, right? And a lot of times it's where we naturally gravitate to, especially if you're not a hyper muscular person. This is developing the strength that we need on the bike for the run off the bike, basically. 10 seconds, we're going to start that choice cadence effort. 3, 2, 1, let's go. 80%. You choose the cadence wherever it's comfortable for you. Don't do it again in the 60 to 70 RPM range. That's the only requirement. Don't go back down that low, but it's your choice. And like I said, totally fine to pick one cadence range for this one. Fine to vary the cadence a little bit throughout these 4 minutes, but try to tuck into that arrow position. Now that we're at normal cadence, this is where obviously we're focusing on the lower RPM when we're at 60 to 70. But when we're under normal cadence, this is your opportunity to really just hone in. Here's 80%, right? Here's your current 80% effort to check in to make sure that that feels like what 80% should be feeling like. And really note this one. Again, I know it's only 4 minutes, and note the difference as we progress to 90 and to 100. And I know on paper, when we have these, you know, when we have the guidance on screen, basically, we're able to say, well, we know 80%, 90%, 100%, right? And I just had an athlete email me and say, well, look, you know, I always train with power. We do everything with power, but Indian Wells, I don't have a power meter on my bike, right? I'm going to get one, but I don't have one on right now. That's exactly the scenario where this gear differentiation, this really getting in tune with what 80%, what 90%, what 100% feels like is so important, because that same athlete also sent me like, what do you think, would this be the right heart rate zone? And had him go back and look at different zone 3 type efforts, right? This 80%, 85% type efforts. He's like, oh, you know, the heart rate I was pulling out, that would have been X amount of beats, you know, way higher. And obviously heart rate can fluctuate on race day. So it's always useful context, but it can be a bit fickle, right? Like if you take extra caffeine, your heart rate might be higher from that. You might be really nervous and excited when you hop on the bike out of transition. Your heart rate might be higher because of that. There's so many factors that can impact it, that at the end of the day, it's really important to be able to hone into this effort. For the same reason that we could run out of transition after the swim, hop on the bike and be at 100% effort and be thinking, I feel great. I feel great. This is amazing. Obviously, we're not going to sustain that for a half Ironman or certainly a full Ironman. But, and unlike the swim, there's no benefit to extra takeout speed on the bike because we can't draft. So we really want to have a metered and in control efforts. That's where tuning in to this 80%, 90%, 100% being able to differentiate those, even if we took all the numbers away, very, very valuable. So it's a big part of, I'd say, on the bike, the technical aspect or the technical phase of training is really learning and beginning to feel this gear differentiation. Another 45 seconds here. Nice and smooth. Seen many people fueling already on the ride, which makes me quite happy. We might not be doing endless threshold intervals or VO2 work, but that fueling is constantly important. It's something I'm constantly harping on with all my athletes, and I want to make sure we're doing it, even though it's only 5:45 or now 6:15 in the morning. All right, and recover. So next two efforts, same pattern, we'll be up at 90% effort. On the fueling front, I think an easy way to describe this is, people we talk about, or you'll hear terms like fat max, or people doing, a simple 1 hour session where they're not taking in much or any fuel. But one of the caveats with that type of training and that type of riding is when you're doing a ride that is, maybe it's 60 minutes in length, for example, right? And the goal there is pure metabolic training, meaning stimulating fat burning, activating that system. The reality is, for most people, like we saw with those I did the inside testing with, is the key is dropping the power, right? There's zero benefit to doing a workout like this. Could you? Yes. But is there any benefit to doing this workout, putting in zero fuel? No, there's nothing additional that you will gain by doing any workout with 80%, 90%, 100% intensity without fuel. There's nothing to be gained. When we're layering on power, when we're layering on torque demands, when we're layering on effort, we're training the whole body. If we are doing a ride at 50 or 60% or 55% of threshold, just a 45-minute ride or a 60-minute ride, not putting in fuel, that is specifically solely with the goal of training the metabolism, acknowledging that we are missing out on some of the benefits that you get from a higher power output, which trains the heart and the muscles in a different way. So just trying to differentiate those two things. Our sessions, this session, always fuel, no benefit to not putting fuel in the tank here. And in a few seconds, we're going to bring that cadence down, start slowing it down right now. And here we go. 90% effort, 60 to 70 RPM. So a little bit higher, still very doable. 90% is, arguably that borderline, that top end of zone 3. It's not really, it's a little bit of that in-between zone, if you think about it, because we're not racing there really at a half Ironman, but we do need the ability to push up there if we're going up a climb, if we're powering into a headwind, if we're passing people. So we're not going to spend incredible amounts of time here in a race scenario, maybe, right? It's harder than a half, or maybe a little under what you might do Olympic distance at, but really important gear to know, because if you're in a half, or in any race, really, it could be a full as well. I shouldn't just say a half, but anything where your base pace is below this, knowing that this is what 90% feels like. This is still a controlled effort. This is somewhere you can push up to, and you're not running the risk. You're not dumping lactate in the body. There's no risk of blowing up, but you want to really differentiate this from that 100% effort, because in a full, spending any lengths of time up at 100%, any long lengths of time is obviously going to be costly from a glycogen standpoint. But here, this is where in that half, you can push up here. We talk about overweighting. Maybe you're riding into a headwind at a race like La Quinta or Indian Wells for a 5-minute block of time, right? And then you're backing down to that 80, 85% type effort. So really feeling that this was 80% we started at, here's 90%. That's the opportunity here. Obviously, I know it's a little harder to do that at 60 to 70 RPM, so you can focus on the cadence effort here. But when we get to the choice part, focus on how the effort feels overall. You hear me over and over again saying that arrow position, which you're all doing a great job with. The reason is same concept as wanting to just sprinkle in a little bit of 100% effort today, and making sure that we're translating the changes, the efficiency and pedal stroke from the lower power to the higher power. We want to translate that to race day, and ultimately we go on and on and on about it, but you're better off doing less power and staying in the arrow position the whole time than more power and spending 25% of your race out of the arrow position. The easiest stereotype for that one is Kona, because it's a course where in theory you could do every foot of that course except for a few corners in the arrow position, but you will see people spending large amounts of time out of that arrow position. So these sessions, they're an hour in length. If you're running into any issues or discomfort staying in the arrow position for an hour, this is actually a great time of year because we have the ability to address it. Outside of Indian Wells, you likely don't have any urgent race kind of pending where you don't want to change anything. So if there are issues staying in that arrow position through this hour or through these blocks of work, then that's something we'll want to explore as well. Because within triathlon, yes, the power output's important, but that body position is arguably equally as important. Another 10 seconds here, then a couple minutes easy. All right. Choice cadence, remember, during all recovery periods. You can also adjust power as you need during these 2 minutes. If you feel better, it's set at 50%, but if you feel a little bit better, lower, higher. If you want to stop pedaling for a moment, whatever you need, the recovery periods are always yours. Everybody's taking that opportunity to drink and fuel up. That's great to see. Like I think it was Alicia had mentioned, taking a while there for the single leg drills to feel comfortable. It can be the same thing with this lower cadence work, right? It's not 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4 sessions that build a huge strength foundation, right, for us for this sport. So don't, we're in November. My point is, don't say, well, I want it to be feeling this way, or if it feels a little bit more challenging than you think it should, don't worry about any of that. There's a long runway ahead. There's a whole season ahead. And this is the first 4 weeks of training for this coming season. So just keep that in mind. What does Jerry say? It takes at least 10 touches on a given aspect of training or a given thing to start to feel comfortable with it. That's just to start to feel comfortable, right? Like swimming in your wetsuit. So keep that same approach here, right? It might take 10 sessions where you're spending time at 60 to 70 RPM to feel a little bit more comfortable with it. It might take 10 separate, or more separate sessions of, single leg drills to just start to get the hang of it a little bit. So don't rush yourselves. Don't be stressed about it. Don't be judgmental of it. Just focus on the process. And right now in 15 seconds, that's a nice 90% effort for 4 minutes. So this one, cadence is your choice. Doesn't have to be the same as at 80%. And you have the opportunity to really focus on that difference in feel. All right, here we go. So that difference in feel, because 80% might be your base pace for a half Ironman. And we want to know, okay, we can push up to 90, we can stay there. But unless, I don't, even Jim, I think would say the same thing. I don't think any of us are spending, our half Ironman race at a 90% effort. So we want to know where we can push to, but also understand when we're in an area that isn't quite sustainable for that entire duration. When we talk about the effort, the strength focus on the bike, we talk about setting up for the run. there's also the other aspect to this that not everybody loves to hear. And I can tell you as a cyclist, when I came to the sport of triathlon, it's not necessarily a fun reality, but we always talk about improvement, and odds are everybody on here, we have room for improvement on the bike, right? But if we break down how much power and everything else it takes to improve by, say, X amount of minutes on the bike, we could do this on a Tuesday call, it'd be quite fun, and how easy it is to either gain or lose that time in the run in the course of a handful of miles. If you're having a good run, maybe gain. If you blow up on the run, it's the other end. You can lose minutes per mile. You can easily lose 30 seconds to a minute per mile if you're not set up for a good run or in the latter half of a run. And I think that's a crucial component to this sport. Sometimes we talk about the swim where certain people might get to a point and they say, okay, my swim, like, it's really just not getting any quicker. Then where do you find the meaning in the training? Well, you find the meaning in, well, maybe that's going to be my max speed. Maybe one day I'll have a breakthrough, but for now, this is the quickest I'm swimming. But can I swim that same time and get out of the water with a lower metabolic cost? Can I get out of the water with feeling better overall and more prepared for the bike? So basically building that swim fitness to set yourself up for a better bike. Same concept applies to our on the bike training. Yes, we want to improve, but at times everybody will plateau. That might be for a month. That might be for an entire season. I think of Brian Massey on the swim. I mean, any of you could talk to Brian and he'd say this year, finally, something's really clicking with the swim for him. And you have seasons where it plateaus and you get somewhere and you just have to kind of deal with that. Jerry has great stories about it in the water as well. I share that with you because on the bike, if we get to a period where we feel like a season where we might be on a plateau, there's still fitness to be gained. Maybe that your bike plateaus and it sets you up for the best run that you've ever done off the bike. So there's always something to be gained in training. Obviously, we always have room to improve, but keep that in mind. If you ever get frustrated on the bike or you feel like you're in a period of training where you are on that plateau, either now or during the season or whenever, is this work we're doing, the strength foundation we're building, is to also set you up to improve your run, right? I think it's true what they say, bike for show, run for dough in professional triathlon. You have to be able to run. And the stronger we are, the more resilient we are on the bike, the better we're going to run. So we're not going to be cracking and losing a minute per mile that we worked so hard to gain on the bike. 15 more seconds here. All right, and recover, your choice. Couple more reps to come. One of the reasons, despite improving fitness, early on in our athletic journey on the bike, it's very easy to improve times in a half or a full Ironman. Times can be a little irrelevant because of wind, because of weather, temperature, rain, cold, heat, whatever. But if you think about it, on the bike, much like in the swim, we have air resistance to deal with, right? Running can be a lot more about running economy and pure run fitness. We're not working at the speeds we're all running quite as hard to overcome aerodynamics, right? Or air resistance at the speeds that we're running at. On the bike, we can make big improvements in power. And believe it or not, the time gains that can translate to aren't as big as one might hope or think over the course of a race. What it really does is builds our fitness base and then combines, our pure bike fitness with the aspects like staying in the aero bars more, overweighting power on certain parts of the course where you're going to get more bang for your buck on it. All those components then play into, okay, how can we gain more than just a 10-watt increase over the course of a half Ironman or a full Ironman, for example. It's really in it's making the fitness gains and then how we use it on the bike that leads to the actual time change on course. All right, so these next two efforts, we get those little bit of exposure to threshold, right? It's a good opportunity to check in to see if where your threshold is feeling good. Again, unless you are peaking for Indian Wells, it probably should not be at the same place. as you have it at your peak fitness. This first rep, 60 to 70 RPM. So bring that cadence down right now. And here we go. Torque demand on the body at 60 to 70 RPM at 100% effort. It is very similar. There are different charts. Everybody's a little bit different, but it is as much demand on the muscles as when you're doing that VO2 type work or even above at a nice relaxed 95 to 100 RPM. So 100% effort, 60 to 70 RPM. It's a solid demand. Really lock into this one. Remember, we want to try to stay in that arrow position as much as we can. And what I noted to you when you guys were all looking relaxed and smooth on that first 80% effort at 60 to 70 RPM, that's what we want to go for here. It's just 4 minutes. You have 3 minutes to go. Relax the hands, relax the neck. Don't get tense just because effort's increasing. A lot of times we'll talk about it in swimming or in running where there are athletes who actually get pretty much the same speed at, if you tell them go at a 95% effort as they do at 100%. And there's a lot behind that, but really it's tension, right? It's people tensing up in the pool, changing their stroke in the run, just locking up and not having that fluid stride because they think, okay, I'm at 100% effort here. You tell them 95 and they're consciously holding back that little bit. There's consciously that little bit of relaxation because they're like, well, I'm not at my max effort here. We say 100% on the bike. We're always referencing in context to FTP. FTP in theory is sustainable for a lot longer than 4 minutes. So same concept here. We want to have that feeling of relaxation. We want to have that feeling of fluidity that comes with putting out a hard effort, but not being at our max. If we were doing this for half an hour or more or something, then yes, we'd be pushing that limit. But for less than 2 minutes here, just lock in to that nice low cadence and finish it off as smooth as you can. Reason we always do it in this order, kind of the odds are the lower cadence, is that you have something to look forward to. A lot of times the effort can feel harder when you have to keep the cadence in this range, can feel more uncomfortable. And despite heart rate perhaps being higher, obviously when we go to our choice cadence on the next effort, it can mentally and even physically on the legs feel a lot easier when all of a sudden you get to just execute 100% effort at whatever feels good to you. It becomes fun almost. So 40 more seconds here, stable upper body, everybody looking just like they did at 80%. And that's the key. If you've ever watched an incredible swimmer or an exceptional runner, there's always this relaxation to their stroke or to their stride. And it's actually quite hard to tell how fast they're running or swimming unless you are timing it or looking at them because it just looks good. Five more seconds here, and then recover. Nice job. Say looks good, right? It sounds pretty broad, but I think it's an easy way to describe it. Was testing an athlete at the track, and it was, you know, okay, go do a nice warm-up jog, right? 8, 9, 10-minute mile, whatever you feel like. Okay, now you need to run 6:15. Now you need to run 5:45. Now you need to run 5:15. Now you need to run 4:55 pace. And this person was an exceptional runner. And it was, if you took away the clock, if you took away what I was, you know, timing, it would have, I couldn't have really told you whether he was running 6:15 or 4:55 pace because he just looked, you know, when you saw him finish breathing, yes, he was working much harder. at that just sub 5 pace, but it was just a metronome. It looked, the stride wasn't changing, the form wasn't changing, it wasn't getting uglier as he got faster. And that's what just kind of stuck in my mind. And I think the same, Emily would be a better barometer, but kind of applies to swimming, is you don't really see elite swimmers, if they're having a successful race, deteriorate at the very end. You see just that consistent stroke all the way to the wall, all the way through the last 25 of a super hard, whether it's short or long event. And that's always struck me as amazing. And I think I need to find the video to show on the Tuesday call. The same thing applies to the bike. Unless it's hard to tell the difference sometimes, but if you look at the best cyclists in the world, when they're having a great day or they're completely cracking, it's actually kind of mentally challenging because their pedal stroke looks really similar. There aren't all these visual cues. If you're looking at, say, the top 5 guys in the world in the Tour de France, when they're flying or when they're having a bad day. So few seconds and 100% effort. Enjoy this one. It's at your choice cadence. So again, this cadence doesn't have to match 80%, 90%. It's wherever you want to be, wherever you are comfortable. Very possible that it's a little bit higher than it was when we were down at 80%. But those stories about the swimmers and the runner, that is what we are looking to do on the bike. If I was just looking at you, if I didn't have power, I don't want to know. I don't want to be able to know if you are at 80% effort or 100% effort. Obviously, like I said, if we're doing it for an hour or 40 minutes or whatever, then there are going to be visual cues. There's going to be breathing, all that. But for 4 minutes, if I go back and look at the video of this workout, I don't want to know if you were at 80% or at 100%, because we should have the same relaxation, the same smooth pedal stroke, same body position on the bike. When I say relax on the bike, focus on the effort, it's also because we never want you forcing anything on the bike. We have our bike fit, we have our set position, but whether we realize it or not, it's really easy, especially in training indoors, to manipulate exactly how we're sitting on the bike and exactly what muscles we're choosing to engage. And while we do work to engage all the muscles, when you're doing this effort for the next 2 minutes, relax into it. Don't hyper focus on trying to engage the glutes or the quads or one specific thing. Just pedal, just relax. Because ultimately, when we're in a race and we're incredibly fatigued, we default to the lowest common denominator. We default to whatever is natural. So there's no point in trying to force something or force something to engage over these next 2 minutes at 100%. We want a relaxed position, and ideally that relaxed position on the bike feels good. If it doesn't, that shows us maybe there's room to change or to improve. All right, we're coming up, minute 15 left. Enjoy this last bit. Enjoy this little touch of intensity. It's not too much. It's not too sustained, right? It's just that threshold, but we've gone a little bit of time, and it's just nice to give the body that reminder, right? Part of it's the efficiency. There is the mental aspect to not necessarily wanting to go, say, 3 months without ever touching intensity, just because we forget what it feels like. But this is really about those differentiations in effort. So 100%, tune into what this feels like. Note how different it is, hopefully, compared to 90 and 80%, and finish this off strong for 30 seconds. All right, and recover. Couple minutes easy, then for Alicia or anybody else who enjoys high cadence, it always comes full circle. There'll be somebody on here who really doesn't enjoy the high cadence stuff, but we're gonna do our 3-minute high cadence drill after this little recovery period. That's just in a nice zone 2 effort. The goal during that is to get as high as we smoothly can. I put on there 105 or above RPM, but realistically, if high cadence feels foreign to you, if high cadence feels really challenging, if you need to go to just 100 RPM today, that's fine. We definitely want to crack that 100 range, but we also don't want to go so high that we're completely rocking everywhere in the saddle on the bike. I say not completely rocking because it's very natural. Everybody has a different amount of movement. At RPM this high, you're going to have some movement. It's not maybe possible to be just perfectly still, but you just don't want it to be extreme. So if going up above 105 feels too challenging, you can go to that 100 to 105 range. If you can, 105 RPM or above, then sit there. That's perfect. Again, it's that drill. It's a kind of nice way to finish it off whenever we incorporate the low cadence work. And again, if you can execute this in the arrow position, go for it. If it feels like too much of a challenge there for today, no stress, come out of the bars. It's really up to you, but if you can, give it a shot, or at least some of it a shot in that arrow position. All right, start bringing that cadence up, up, up. And here we go. All right. Andrew's on my outfit. There's some, the comments are great. Just, that's what when I'm looking over, that's what it is. So high cadence, bring it to, we're looking, Zwift always takes that middle ground, right? If you look on Training Peaks, it's 105 to 120 RPM. It says 113. If you're at 105 RPM, perfect. If you're at 101 RPM, that's great. Push as high as we can comfortably. I say comfortably because we do, as the warm-up for one of the workouts you guys have already done and one we'll do again, we intentionally push cadence up beyond that comfortable high. We're trying to get to, say, 130 and we're bouncing everywhere, and that's actually okay in that specific warm-up. But today we're looking for smooth and efficient. This high cadence, again, it's, in a broad scope, it's that mind-body connection, right? We want everything to be firing smoothly. We want to improve our pedaling efficiency. And again, it's a little bit those two extremes. We don't need to do endless high cadence drills, but these little doses of it, right? Progressing our cadence up during the warm-up, making sure that we've gotten the low cadence work in the workout, but finishing here, it always kind of leaves us in a good place. We do, if you don't incorporate these high cadence drills, you might say, oh, I did the meat of the workout, but just this little 3 minutes, making sure we get it, it's really important because you do run the risk of going through a technical and a foundational phase and only focusing on low cadence work, especially if you're an athlete who gravitates towards low cadence. You might lose the efficiency that you want at either a higher race cadence or just the ability to go to high cadence, because the truth is, no matter what gearing we have on the bike, there are going to be portions of the race that call for a 90 plus RPM kind of range because of a tailwind or a little bit of downhill where we still need to keep the power on. So it's important to be efficient across the whole range, make sure that the gains translate from 60 to 70 to 80 to 90 to 90 to 100 RPM. So good job staying on and getting this drill done. Just a few more seconds here. All right, nice work. And just a little cool down left. If you think about the swim, I think it's a fun way to think about the high cadence drill. There's so many good analogies or kind of things to relate that come from the pool. A lot of times we'll do a hard set or we'll do fast swimming, and we'll finish with a pulling, buoy band, snorkel cool down. And I remember Jerry telling me, like, it's the reset, because we might have finished our last 100 that was fast, a little bit sloppy, right? That happens in the pool. Everybody looked great for those 4 minutes, but when we're doing a 15-minute threshold interval, we might finish it a little bit sloppy. We might finish it a little bit not really honed in on that nice relaxed pedaling, that good form that we're trying to ingrain. So in the pool, we do some pulling where we just focus on alignment. We're removing the breathing, we're removing everything else. On the bike, a lot of times it's these high cadence drills and those single leg drills to just kind of give ourselves a reset. So nice work staying on for it. Also, oh yeah, wait. We have to sing happy birthday.
Everybody on mute. Let's go. Unmute.
Yeah.
Kuno's birthday.
Let's go.
Unmute. Let's go, Lori.
Okay.
Unmute. Let's sing
3,
happy. Let's go. Anna, 1.
2,
Andrew, lead it off.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy Kuno. Happy birthday to you. That was by far the highlight of our session. I think nobody would disagree with that. So,
And the disco lights. Great singing. Thank you.
Kathy,
Great
what do you have to say for yourself? Come on, give us some words of advice on your 29th birthday.
Right? Oh man. Our team's awesome. Love you all. Thank you. Have fun. Enjoy.
All right, party time.
That was an amazing workout. That was fantastic. And then with Doug, low cadence.
Well, we have people who love it, people who don't. There's always a bit of everything in the workouts, but thank you guys for another great session. Enjoy the rest of your birthday. Thank you for starting it with us, and good luck if you're racing this weekend, and we will see you next week.